Hey gang, Lou here from Jersey Shore Fabricators. So today we got a 2004 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport. Front brakes on it are warped, the rotors are warped. So we're going to change all 4 brakes and rotors. We're going to use power stop brakes. I like using them because they're not much more expensive than stock, but you get drilled and slotted rotors, ceramic brake pads. They give you the whole hardware kit with them. So I'm going to go ahead and get this jacked up and we'll tear into this and see what it's like. Alright, so this looks pretty standard. Looks like a couple of 14 or 15 millimeter bolts here for the calipers. On the back is probably going to be a 17 millimeter bolts that hold the caliper bracket on, and then after that we can knock the rotors off. Let's see what we got. 14. It's pretty standard stuff. That went without a fight. Alright, now the caliper bracket is held on with 2 17 millimeter bolts. You have one at the top here, one at the bottom. That's that, so that's off. Now that that's off, take the rotor off. That goes on the scrap metal pile. And that disassembles the front brakes. So I'm going to take you over to the bench. I'm going to show you how I clean the caliper bracket, do the grease on the slides. I've shown that in other videos, but I might as well show it here. We'll get everything cleaned up and then start reassembling. So now in the back here, it's more of second verse, same as the first. 14 millimeter bolts hold on the caliper, but also 14 millimeter bolts hold on the caliper bracket. So we'll get those apart and then see how much of a fight the drum is going to be, because the emergency brake system is inside here, but not in here. Oh, one step at a time. Little tiny calipers free. And those rear pads are pretty much done. Now let's see how much they over tighten the caliper brackets. Okay, now comes the fight. Yeah, let me see what this is going to take. Okay, so I had read somewhere that you can actually use a couple of, they're 10 millimeter heads. I don't know what thread size they are. I don't keep too much metric stuff around here. You could thread them into these 2 holes that are here, and it'll actually, as you thread them, it'll pull the rotor off. Like I said, I don't keep any metric stuff around here, so let's just try some good old-fashioned brute force. See what that does. Yeah, that seems to work. Get that worked off of there. Alright, and just like that, I gave it a spin and it popped right off. Nice and easy. So now we'll go over to the bench, we'll start cleaning up the front brake caliper bracket, and we'll get the brakes loaded on there and start reassembling. So the idea here is we want to get the brake pads out and get the caliper cleaned up, get the pins out, grease them, make sure everything's moving freely. So it's not a very hard process. It just takes a little bit of time if you want to do the job right. So once you get your pads out, you have your brake hardware here. Anti-rattle clips. I don't know, they go by a bunch of different names. Just like that. We got another pin. What I do is I take a wire wheel on a drill, just because it's quickest. And I'll go over the whole thing, get all the old dust and junk off of it. Because we're going to be putting grease and new hardware on here, so we want everything to be right. And that's enough. Okay, now, for those of you that love brake clean as much as I do, we'll give this a good douching. Just to make sure everything's nice and clean. Put a little squirty in there. I have this bottle cleaning brush. I love using this for brakes because it works. It's just the right size. You can pick these up over at the dollar store for like, I don't know, $1. And one more for good measure. And that's that. Now this is ready to be reassembled. So I'm gonna go get some parts and we'll get after that. Now your kit from Power Stop is gonna come with your new pads. It's going to come with your new anti-rattle clips, and it's going to come with new rubber dickies. Now, I know everybody was paying attention, so, it's also going to come with grease. The rearmost mounting point has got these little rubber dickies on them. You get new ones in your package. You might as well use them, they're there. We'll get that slid on there, like that. Now you can use their grease. It even tells you where to put the grease, okay? Now you can use regular synthetic high temperature disc brake grease if you have it. If you don't, you can always go buy it, but they give it to you. So why not use it? So I try not to be too shy about it. Make sure that works the way it's supposed to. Put the little booty on. And you want to make sure you have free movement here, okay? Because you have floating calipers, and this is how your calipers move and don't hang up on the, cause your brake pads to hang up on the rotor. Booties are there to keep all the, junk, water elements out. Because what I find on a lot of cars is that the brakes actually work fine. It's just that the caliper bolts have seized up and nothing is moving. So therefore, it just grinds the brakes down. And that's no good. There we go. Now, one little extra trick I like to do is on the back side of where your anti-rattle clips go, I like to put some grease. Brake squeal isn't squeal from metal on metal. It's actually a high frequency vibration that you're hearing. And if there's no cushion between that thin metal of the anti-rattle clips and this cast iron caliper bracket, you have a chance to have a squeal. And I don't have cars come back because of squeals. So, is it necessary? I don't know. Has it always worked for me? Yeah, it has actually. So these are going to snap in place right where the old ones were. Coming down to the end here. We want a little grease where these are going to make contact, because I want everything to move. So I'll put a little down here. I think we should be good. This one needs to go in here. The other one without the wear indicator. Same thing, a little grease. A little grease. Just on the contact points. And that's that. And now that's ready to go back on the car. Now, before you just go taking the rotors out of the package and throwing them on the car, with Power Stop, they take the thinking out of it for you. So, here's our new shiny rotor. And you'll see each rotor is going to be marked, like this one is the front passenger side. You can't screw it up. You can, but you gotta be awfully stupid. Now, the only other thing you gotta do, the rotors come with an oil film on them to keep them from rusting. These had a date of September of 19 that they were made. Here we are, July of 2020, so they obviously sit around for a while. I always do the fronts first, because when you flip this over and you put it back down, this surface isn't touching the ground. Make sense? And then after that, take your filthy paws off of the face of the rotor. Just like that. Now, normally if this car was in really bad shape, where the center of the hub is, I would take a wire wheel and clean that and put never sees on it. This car is exceptionally clean. There's no rust on it. This car actually lived most of its life in Hawaii, and then came to the Northeast maybe 5 years ago. So there is no rust on this car. It's actually a pleasure to work on. So now it's just a matter of bolting on the caliper bracket, putting the caliper on. Sometimes getting that first bolt is a little finicky, but if you fadoodle with it long enough, it'll go. That's easy enough. There's one other step you got to do, and basically what we need to do is we need to push the pistons here back into the caliper. All right, gang, that's that. That's brakes on a Subaru. Not that hard. Now, the only last thing for you to do is obviously put the wheels back on, but you're going to have to test drive it. And when you test drive it, you're going to bed the brakes in. What that means is that you're going to go to 10 miles an hour, do a stop. 30, do a harder stop. 40, do a harder stop. 50, get on the brakes. All right. Now what you're doing is you're creating a wear pattern, okay? Because these are all going to be mated for life. So you're creating a wear pattern on how they're going to, well, wear as you're driving the car. Even with regular brakes, you know, you pick them up at, you know, your local auto parts store, you're going to do the same thing. But like I said, that's that. You know, it's nice and easy on these cars. The key is to clean and grease. Okay. Make sure everything is moving smoothly, nothing's binding up. When you go to push your caliper pistons back in, make sure they're not hanging up. That's an indicator of a frozen caliper. At that point, just replace the caliper. They're cheap enough, it ain't worth taking a risk on it. All right, well, hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Until we see you next time, peace.